Okay, we've got Chris. Kathy, are you all set? Okay.
Yes.
We are recording. Great. Okay. I'll call the meeting to order for Tuesday, 16 November 2021 at 7:33 a.m. Conferring member access. As a preliminary matter, this is Robert Holland, the Shrewsbury Electric and Cable Operations Selco Commission Chair. Please permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Tony Trippi.
Here.
Maria Lemieux.
Here.
Mike Ruffolo.
Here.
Matt Beaton.
Here.
Okay, staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Christopher Roy.
Here.
Kathy Rytham.
Here.
Okay, Ralph Iacarino.
Here.
Joel Malabar. Nothing heard from Joel. Okay. Jackie Pratt.
Here.
Okay. Greg Honorato. Nothing heard. Jonathan Malabar.
Here.
Okay. Patrick Collins.
Here.
Tracy Schultz.
Here.
Jim Zacco.
Here.
Scott Stark.
Here.
Magadeep Sarapali.
Here.
Aaron Lacure.
Here.
Okay. And Billy Yovan.
Here.
Okay. Good morning. This open meeting of the Selco Commission is being conducted remotely, consistent with Senate Bill 2475, signed into law by Governor Baker on June 16, 2021. Suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Law, Chapter 30 Alpha, Paragraph 18, this meeting of the Selco Commission will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. The order allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as a reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meetings. For this meeting, the Selco Commission is convened by Google Meet as posted on the town's website, identified how the public may join. Please be sure to press the *6 to mute your device, or if you're on your regular iPad, just step on your microphone there to mute yourselves. With that, we'll get on. This meeting will not feature any public comment. And finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by roll call. And also, before I forget, because we usually get running off at the end, I'd like to thank Mark Serra and the SMC folks for their video support. Okay, with that said, we'll go to the agenda. I see that Joel has also joined us, so for our list of attendees, so that's great. And for the first one, we called the first agenda item is call the meeting to order. We've done that. And next is to review and consider approval of bill schedules and warrants. There was a significant stack of warrants that were included in our deliberation package. Are any of the board members have any questions on any of the warrants? I'll do a roll call vote to verify that everyone has a chance to say anything. Tony?
No, I don't have any questions.
Okay. Maria?
I have one question.
Okay.
And it's in the first set of warrants, and it's on page 3, and it's just a significant refund to Orchard Grove. Just curious.
So I can handle this one. Basically, before I started, there was a audit done by a third-party company from a sales and use tax perspective for that customer on their behalf, and they overpaid taxes. So they actually did a filing with the state on our behalf to get the taxes refunded to us. We had an issue where the state would not refund the customer directly, so it had to come through us, and then we had to refund the customer. So we were just a pass through, and it was basically them overpaying sales tax.
Thank you.
Okay. Mike, any questions?
No questions or anything. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Matt, do you have any questions or comments on the warrants?
No.
Okay, thank you. With no questions on the warrants, I'll look for a move to approve the warrant, and then we'll do a roll call vote. And once we're done with that, if it's approved, I will sign for all of us physically at the town hall, as we've done in the past during the pandemic. Okay. With that said, do we have a motion to accept the warrants?
Yes, I move that we accept the warrants as stated.
Okay, and do we have a second?
A second.
Okay, thank you. So roll call vote to approve the warrants as presented. Tony,
Yes.
Maria,
Yes.
Mike?
Yes, except as to Myrick O'Connell's separate
Yes,
warrant.
Okay, and Matt?
Yes.
Okay, and Bob Holland, yes. So the warrants are approved, and Kathy, if you set that up, I'll swing by and approve the warrants today. With that set, the third open session agenda item is review and consider approval of the meeting minutes from our last open meeting of October 19th, 2021. I'll do a roll to see if anybody has any comments on those minutes. Tony?
No.
Okay. Maria?
No.
Mike?
No comments.
And Matt?
No.
Okay, if I have a motion to accept the minutes as presented for the October 19th, 2021 meeting.
So moved. Tony.
And I'll second.
A second.
Okay, a roll call to approve the minutes as submitted. Tony?
Yes.
Maria?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And Matt?
Yes.
Okay, the next item is Mr. Zacco's chance to shine. We have the financial statements for September 2021. The floor is yours, sir.
Good morning, everybody. Hope everybody's doing well. Let me just share my screen. Okay, so today we are going to be looking at the financials for 2021. We're going to take a look at Q3 results from electric income statement, the electric balance sheet, cable income statement, and cable balance sheet. Starting with the electric income statement. Now, this is Q3 results. So on this side, you're looking at all 3 months for Q3. And if we take a look, our operating revenues are 1% above plan. Our operating income is about 28% below plan, and our net income is about 25% below plan. And we kind of talked about this last month, how we had kind of a spike in other operating income. And then if we jump over and we take a look to the year-to-date budget, you know, we're below plan about 8% for operating revenues. And from an operating income, we're above plan for 15%. And from a net income percent, we are above 19%. And if we take a look, last month we were about 9% on our return. We are now, you can see we're back down to 7%, which is in our target range. Jumping over just to look at a year-over-year comparison. And this is from a quarter to quarter of 2021 to 2020. When we take a look at our operating revenues, we're about 6% below previous year. From operating income, we're about 44% below. And net income, we are 42% below. Jumping over to the year to date, if we take a look at that comparison, from a operating revenue, we're about 13% below prior year. And from an operating income, about 39% below, and from net operating about 39%. We're still good. This is nothing to be worrisome about, even though we're below the previous year. That can be very normal. So we'll jump down to the balance sheet. Taking a look at the balance sheet for electric, operating cash is around 15 million, which is about even with last year, just down a little bit. One number I want to call out is if we take a look at our customers' accounts receivable, they're decreasing year over year, which is a good thing during the pandemic. A lot of companies right now are seeing, accounts receivables increase because people have a tough time paying their bills. We are not seeing this on electric, which is a positive note. And then you can see our, current assets are around 22 million, which is kind of even with last year.
Can I just ask a quick question relative
Yes.
to comparison to last year? Are there any pandemic dynamics of people working from home and that affect the year-to-year comparison?
Yes, and you can see that in some of our operating incomes and expenses. since 2019, 2020, and 2021, they're all kind of different. And what you kind of see from an operations perspective is there's more revenue, and we don't have that level of detail in this report, but more coming from residential than there was commercial, where previous years it's kind of a little bit different. From an operating expense perspective, 2020, I believe, was a little bit lower than previous year, and you can start to see it's hasn't really leveled out yet, but it's one of those things where you're not pushing as many big projects and whatnot throughout the pandemic years. I do expect to see some of this increase just cost wise with some of the distribution short or the shortages with being able to get supplies. There are going to be probably major cost increases on some things like transformers, wires, and stuff like that. So 2022 will be kind of interesting.
Thanks.
And so just going in to the non-current assets, they have increased a little bit to 49 million from previous year. And this is just normal spending of buying in new assets. Jumping down to our total liabilities, we are at 26 million, down from 28. And if we come to the total bottom, we can see our total surplus or total earnings surplus has increased to 45 million. And then overall, our total liabilities and surplus earnings have increased as well to 72 million. Switching gears and taking a look at cable, income statement for Q3, our operating revenues are 1% below plan, and our operating income is 19% above plan. Our net income is 13% above plan as well. Jumping over to the year-to-date numbers, our operating revenue is 1% above plan, and our operating income is 21% above plan. Taking a look at our net income year-to-date, we are 16% above plan. Looking at the year-over-year comparison, our operating revenues have increased 2% from last year, and our operating income has increased 3% above last year. Our net income has decreased 7% year over year. Now, jumping back, looking at year-to-date numbers, our operating revenues are 2% above previous year, where our operating income has decreased 1% over the previous year. Net income has also decreased about 8%. Taking a look at the balance sheet, we have increased our total cash and operating funds from up to 47 million, and this has to do with, I believe, bond funds that we've talked about previously. And again, just pointing out customers' accounts receivable, we can see a decrease year over year, which is a good sign. This is just showing our customers are able to pay their bills currently. Taking a look at our total current assets, they have jumped up to 49 million and from 32. Jumping down to our non-current assets, they have increased to 17 million from 15 million. This brings our total assets from 65 million or from 47 million to 67 million. Taking a look at the total liabilities, we see our liabilities have increased to 16 million from 2 million, and this is primarily the bond. You can see it on this page here, and my computer screen's blocking me, so I don't know if I'm circling the right number, but the 13 million. The total earned surplus is now 50 million from 45, and that brings our total liabilities and earned surplus to 67 million, up from 47 million. And with that, any questions on any of the numbers?
I'll open it up to any of the board members. Tony, any questions?
No, I do not.
Okay, Maria?
Just to point out something, we're noticing a decline or an increase in the total operating expenses, and is that just due because of all the construction work that we're doing?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Mike?
I have no comments.
Okay, Matt?
Newbie question here on the bond payment.
Mhm.
Could you just provide a little bit of color on that for me?
So this
Please.
is basically the bond for the fiber to the premises, and basically it increases our cash on hand right now to spend for that project, but as well it is a liability for us to pay back. So basically, we'll be paying off that bond, and you're going to see it on the cable side, just affecting the balance sheet in those areas.
On the cable side. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, the bond was all for the fiber installation approved by town meeting, about a year and a half ago.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. I have no other questions either. Thank you, Mr. Zacco, for your financial statement review.
Thank you.
Okay, that leads us to our next item on the agenda, which is review and vote a new Selco annual performance evaluation policy. Mr. Roy, do you want to introduce this and have your people that are going to discuss this take over? Thank you.
Thank you. I think I'll kick it off, and then if I miss any key details, I'll defer to Tracy. I guess as we tried to highlight in the cover memo, we're looking to implement, to my understanding, Selco's first formalized performance evaluation policy. And the idea behind that is to establish a consistent and universal set of metrics to measure performance against goals that we set year over year. Along with that, dovetailing with our calendar year, that we're looking to coordinate the merit increase that's associated with with that performance, as well as the COLA increase. Each year, fast forward, we would do that this year as well, but moving forward, it would be, the November, December timeframe would be the review of the performance and accomplishments over the prior year, along with the associated merit increase that's outlined in this table. And that would then also be consistent with the board's review of the COLA impacts of that particular year. So that combined increase would then be implemented that first payroll period of January of that next upcoming year. And so to support this, we included in the appendix, subject to any feedback. I know folks have different evaluation mechanisms at their respective places of employment, so we're certainly open to any and all feedback and criticism. But for the most part, this performance template is based on one that I've used for a number of years, and it basically sets that stage for something that's a fairly straightforward mechanism to establish clear goals that are intended to be consistent with the overall direction and strategy of Selco, and incorporates a self-assessment component so folks can reflect and raise any accomplishments that may have otherwise gone unnoticed. And then it also, drives it. By no means do we intend to hope to limit, supervisor to employee interaction to once a year. We certainly encourage more than that, but this is at least that one formal point at any given year that we drive home that communication channel between those those supervisors and their folks. And then the other noteworthy point to throw on there was the applicability section. So right now, the idea is to have all folks here, participate in a goal setting process. And then for this particular policy, as folks are aware, we have the collective bargaining unit. So that would be handled a little bit differently. There are assessments within that unit in place today as they progress through the different stages of their different roles. And then the other one being temporary and seasonal help that, are not, it wouldn't make sense to have this apply to them. And so that's, I think that's basically the plan in the nutshell, and we're excited to get this platform in place and give folks a forum to have those conversations with their teams.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Board members, I'll do a roll and see what sort of questions you might have. Mr. Tony? Nothing heard, Tony.
I couldn't get off there for a minute. No, I don't have any real questions. Just the fact that it's about time we have something like this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Maria?
No, I don't have any questions. I guess I'm just a little curious. How does this evaluation compare to the evaluation that's done for the union employees? Is it relatively the same, or are there a lot of differences?
Great question. So I actually chatted with our stewards about this last week. Right now, their evaluation is much more tailored towards the individual specific skill sets required for the job. And so, one of the things we talked about was continuing that, where, necessarily if you're an apprentice line worker, it wouldn't necessarily have the same leadership metrics as perhaps a director, if you will. And so that's where I think we're all on the same page. That's it's an important process. And so there might be some just formatting changes or updating of the content of how the evaluations are delivered. But I do think we had a very good conversation about making sure those components are in there. And a big part is I'm trying to also encourage folks to look at evaluations as a positive thing. We have a really good team here, and it's a way to document accomplishments, and we put it in the file. And chances are, if no one ever looks at your file, but you can rest easy knowing that if someone did, it would say a lot of good things in there. And so it's just a more formal mechanism, to document the good work that folks do.
Thank you for that.
Okay. Mike?
Yeah, I guess I had some questions. I think just starting out, I think the idea of a formal evaluation process is important and great. And this is as good as any, as you could see. So I think that's a good start. I just have I guess my concerns are when it gets to this kind of, I don't know the right term, but lockstep, 3, 2, 1, 0, and when it gets to an automatic COLA increase, does that serve to limit our, and while it seems very fair and comes across as objective, does that actually limit our ability to do things and to appropriately compensate people up or down, how we see, not we is wrong, as the commissioners, it's really you, but as you see is appropriate. And then kind of a secondary to that is some jobs just, a person could be in a job, but I don't want this to come across the wrong way, but the value of that job is within a certain pay range in the market. And it could be that a person has done an outstanding job over time, but they were actually, because of a lockstep kind of pay process, could get paid quite a bit more than the market provides for. And so I'm kind of wondering what the thought process is relative to range for the value provided against market, and also discretion when you see fit. Because this seems to be like the opposite of discretion in a way.
Sure. Absolutely. Okay. No, great questions. So I think I'll start with one thought that popped in my head when you're asking your question is we do maintain the grades for each role. And so with having Tracy on board now, one of the things she's mostly completed with, but is to maintain an updated, continuously updated compensation plan, if you will. And within that plan, and I'm not sure if you recall from our prior meeting, I mean, geez, that was maybe a year ago. But within that plan is basically a summary table of the market ranges for each position. And so I think the way I look at the answer to your question is, if you had a particular individual hold a position for a very long time, they would reach the cap and only be subject to the COLA year over year. That would be the one, thought for a long-term employee in that particular role. The other one is, is that, I think the key is that continuously updated compensation plan where, I've been involved with organizations where it was maybe updated once a decade and things dramatically changed. And the only time, discrepancies came up was when we had a retirement or a departure and we had to go back and look, hey, if we post this, how's this going to look? And are we going to get candidates? And so, we're trying to head that off proactively by having an updated plan year over year. Because we have the market data come in for that.
So it sounds like that built into this plan, maybe I missed it, was I did see, I meant the talk, I did see that you mentioned or talked about the compensation consultant, but the idea is, and if I missed it, I'm sorry, but the idea is that the compensation consultant would come in regularly, whether it's annually or biannually, whatever, but would come in regularly to give you ranges. And you are always still working within the range of the position. So even if a person, you're saying, performs at an excellent level, they could be maxed out.
Exactly.
I can add a line in there about that. We didn't address it in the policy. But you're right. I mean, I'm all about giving people as much money as possible, but we don't want someone being paid way more than the grade. Like that defeats the purpose of having a grade range. So I'm going to put in that it's limited to the cap of the grade. And then after that, it would just be COLA. That's a good catch. Thank you.
Okay.
And then there is a provision in there for there's a provision in there for the GM's discretion as well. Like if someone was to go above and beyond, or if adjustments need to be made otherwise because the position has changed. So that there is a line in there about that. Thanks.
Okay, good. The next I have is in relates to, I guess, Maria's question on union versus non-union. Do we have a sense that union is set up in a COLA plus performance or COLA plus individual performance? Or is it just a general increase? Is there a COLA component to that on the union side?
So that's another great question. So that's our hope. We're working towards being able to present a contract that aligns with the calendar year as well at perhaps the December meeting. We'll see. We're working through some of those provisions, but in there you'll see that it is essentially in a set percentage. So there isn't a COLA component or a merit component. It's just an agreed upon percent increase year over year. And so that way they get the step. So within the bargained grades, there's the step increases that an individual gets based on tenure and performance with respect to their individual job. And then there's the annual increase that an individual gets that's just established by the bargaining agreement.
Okay. And when we get to the COLA component, I've never studied it too hard, but there's COLA and then there's COLA and then there's COLA. There's like different numbers you could look at. And what number are we looking at relative to what we define as inflation? And is that a direct marker in this, or can that float?
Sure.
You
Another
know,
great
if it's
question.
just gasoline, prices that are up, I mean, maybe we're all affected by gasoline prices, but it's a bad example. But if it's just one thing that is hitting, is that what we're really aiming for as far as the COLA, or is there, how thoughtful are we being by picking an indicator for COLA?
Great question. So that's at least one of my thoughts and why it would be, in fact, in this with this meeting, it would be the separate agenda item. We'd offer our thoughts on perhaps the art behind that calculation, and it's certainly subjective, and so we, through that specific agenda item, we'd offer our thoughts and recommendations for your consideration, and we defer to whatever the board consensus is and how to handle that.
Okay.
Well,
And we're
So
going
if I
by,
can
we're going by
if
Social
I can interrupt
Security.
you, the Social Security,
Yeah.
the Social Security cost of living adjustment, which is the federal COLA standard, is the one we followed, and this is what's being followed this year as well, is my understanding. Tracy, correct me if I'm wrong.
And
No,
have we
that's
always
accurate.
done it have we always done that in the past, just done an automatic COLA increase plus an increase, or this is new?
I'm sorry, did I freeze? No, I think we're good. So in the past, it was for July 1 of each year, it was a combined, it wasn't as explicit, but my understanding was it was a combined calculation between COLA and a potential merit. It
Okay.
just wasn't as formalized as this policy.
Right.
Speaking historically, the COLAs have been so low over previous years that there really hasn't been any adjustments in any of our discussion, even about COLA. It's always just been about merit, slant, overall performance, and success of Selco, and then how did we do a peanut butter spread over the entire, and with a plus or minus for those who had done maybe a step above, but no formal procedure to do it. This formalizes it, puts it on a calendar annual basis, and does bring in the fact of COLA plus performance. That's my understanding.
Yeah, and I think to just thinking about it practically, that the inflation rate was just so low that we just we kind of shrugged at it, and it just happens to be the topic of the week right now, and so therefore we're looking at it. It's hard to really know what it is and how it'll adjust. My last kind of grouping of questions or question is, how do you perceive? I mean, performance evaluations are great and I think are important. How do you, when you combine it with kind of a lockstep 3, 2, 1, 0, to me, that's like getting the ABCD grade. And I've been in a hyper high energy grade environment kind of all my life in my studies. And I know what that turns into sometimes. And it's not always positive behavior. And also in the aftermath of figuring out, am I worth a 3, 2, 1, or 0? It doesn't necessarily generate the positive behavior that you're hoping to get. And I'm just wondering, I know you've done this in the past, this type of program in the past. Have you seen any fallout or negative behavior or even comparisons, or do you think this always promotes positive behavior, or can it change the culture of Selco? And to the extent maybe it needs change, but I just wanted to get your thoughts on the effect of this new policy on the culture of the employees and how they work together as a team.
Sure. Geez, that's a great question. So my thought on that is, I think the first major benefit to the overall culture, if you will be having a consistent platform and a transparent basis for delivering the feedback in alignment with goal setting with respect to compensation. I think the template itself always could use improvement for sure, but I think having that consistent platform will be the first beneficial step. And then the with respect to the actual ratings, I think that I will admit will probably be an interesting exercise to see as we deliver these documents to folks and establish the baseline for what the level of expectations are today. Could drive those interesting conversations. And in my past, I have found that to your point, some of the folks that are your higher performers that perhaps, get and exceeds expectations. Now it's that's that harder conversation to explain. I understand you're shooting for A+ year over year, but that's not like that's reserved for a different tier of opportunity and performance that might not even present itself year over year. And so I think as we get into a groove of how the performance mechanisms work, that I think we'll be able to achieve an understanding of how the tool is used. But it's been imperfect in the past, but I think overall it's been positive because people have a means to have a forum to document their achievements, to have that open dialogue with their supervisor or manager, and I think it's been much more positive than it has been negative. It's more of those difficult conversations when someone asks, well, how do I get an outstanding? We did throw the limitation in there for financial reasons and to defend against the fact that I've seen other situations where an outstanding was just given to everybody. Here you go. I have other work to do. Here's an outstanding. Can I check this box? And so because there's other financial metrics there, I think there's some expectations to be set. And I'm sorry, the last comment I thought of with respect to that too is we are slightly different than in my past. We added a signature line for Tracy as the HR expert to review this to help, because I also sign off on each one, but also as a measure before we deliver this to each employee, Tracy will be that quality control mechanism as we establish how we'd like to see this implemented. So there's that initial review and then the final signature from myself.
Okay. And then I also, I mean, it seems strange, but when I've seen this practiced over time, sometimes there could be imbalance that actually comes across as discriminatory. And so another, thought is when Tracy's reviewing is to always review, is to review it in a way that we're also looking for trends and patterns to making sure that we're not creating a de facto discriminatory effect through what appears to be a very objective methodology.
Okay.
And, in the law world, we promote people based on how many billable hours they work. And there's a period of time where women, not men, get pregnant. and over that period of time, and there, we dads could all think we're doing 50-50, but we know the reality. And over time, the billable hour may drop a bit for women, and that over time can become a disproportionate effect 6-7 years out as the raises, continue on this 2-3% factor. And so it's another just thing that I don't know. I love objective criteria, but the discretion is also very important to the makeup of, to me, compensation. But
yeah, that's great.
All right,
that's a great point.
I'm done with all my comments.
Thanks, Mike. Matt?
Thank you. Great line of questions, Michael, there. I have a couple that I had very related that I'll get to in a moment, but I have one very high level question. Do you have a sense, maybe not an exact number off the top of your head, but how many employees and then what the makeup is percentage wise of those in the collective bargaining unit versus non-CBO members?
Yeah, great question. So we've had some comings and goings, as you see in the GM highlights, so I'm going to not get the exact number right, but we hover usually right around 67 employees, 68. Of those 67, 68, I believe the contractual employees are 25, if I'm doing that math quickly in my head correctly. So about a third, for really round numbers.
Okay, great. So we're looking at roughly 40, 42 folks that would be impacted by this.
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. One sort of technical mechanical question relative to how the scoring works, right? So how do you get to the 3%, 2%, whatever that is? Is it auto-populated? You have the overall rating, and then like the individual scores. Do all of the individual scores auto-populate the final rating to get to that 3, 2, 1?
Good question. This one's come up in my past, actually. So the answer is no. It's not set up to automatically derive the final rating based on the checkboxes of the individual categories. That has come up in my past, and that's part, and I've fielded arguments, if it's a little bit too strong of a word, but comments in the past that it should or it shouldn't. These are from employees receiving them. And the thought there was, individual categories, how do you assign weights? And so each one of the challenges I found is that each supervisor delivering this or utilizing this template and delivering this feedback is also different. And so I have found that perhaps those that might directly report to me are going to have a different experience than perhaps those that may directly report to Ralph. And so bringing Tracy into the mix and trying to normalize that as much as possible is part of the effort. But I've looked at it as, with each role is different, and maybe this is right or wrong. I'm not sure. I'm certainly open to feedback, but different positions I've looked at. Say, take maybe if I quickly draw a live example. Some roles, I just flip to a random page here. We have initiative and creativity, judgment, communication. Depending on your role, those categories might have a different weight than others. And so rather than bake it into the form, I've tried to incorporate that as part of my performance assessments of individuals. So if you're in a communication role, that might perhaps be, have a little more emphasis and weight on your final rating than others.
Right.
And so I've done that, just not as concretely, if that's the word, as the form doing it for me. And again, it's I guess in somewhat my willingness to have that conversation and justify it to the recipient of the person that is receiving that. And it's tough because it's a good point, because there's the argument that, is that completely unbiased? Am I incorporating some bias, whether it's conscious or subconscious, into that? I'm not sure, but I'll admit, and hopefully it's okay, but others that may have had just say average performance, but like back to that grading system with school, that I know that's their best effort that they could possibly put forth no matter what. I've given a slightly higher overall rating. Here's the actual facts. Like, you run this mile at this pace, it's just average, but that's as fast as you can go, and you're busting your butt the whole time. The overall rating gets bumped up a little bit, because that's worth noting.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great perspective, and I think it's right on. As much as we want to consider this to be an objective exercise with numbers and checking boxes, it's wildly subjective, because it's the human element in all of this, and the way people ask the questions, answer the questions, the supervisor. Every supervisor, one thing I've learned over time is, and you touched on this, some supervisors are going to go very high on exceeds expectations, outstanding, whatever, and then others are going to be more. And that Tracy, to me, is going to be one of the most difficult things, is reading through, trying to work with folks to get that as close to a normal way of doing it amongst everybody, so you can compare apples to apples, right? That's, to me, has always been the biggest challenge with this.
Yep.
Yeah. one final comment and then one last question. Relative to sort of like the human element of all of this, and something Michael said earlier is, we want this to be a positive exercise, right? And it can sort of get away, and it's all, to me, it all comes down to, does this turn into a box checking exercise that someone has to do in the 11th hour just to, get it over with, or is this actually a meaningful exercise that is not one moment in time, but throughout the duration of the year, right? And that to me is the most valuable piece in this is, if any opportunity to maybe have quarterly or check-ins with the individuals to make that be part of this process, makes it become it removes that rush and maybe even like a little bit of the subjectivity away from it, because it becomes more of a regular way of doing doing business. And it's one of the hardest things in the world to get people to do. It's people are so busy spending the time to do this stuff, but it is so important for a number of reasons, to make sure people are doing their job and they're doing their job well. But I would say even more importantly, particularly in today's wild competitive employment market, making sure people are satisfied, that they see sort of a growth trajectory for themselves, that they're happy in their position, because if they're not happy, they're not going to do a good job and they're not going to stay here very long, right? And that to me is the most valuable part of this. So I think, just my 2 cents, anything that could be done to work with those supervisors to make sure that it is more of a regular component of the way they do their business is a really important thing, just for the overall well-being of the employees, because happy employees makes good work, right? So my soapbox for a moment there, but and then one final question, on the going back to something, I may have missed this, I think we danced around it, but if we are in a position and looking, and this is maybe getting to the next conversation of the schedule that you showed, the sort of the historical COLA analysis, when you look at the variability across that, and who knows what it's going to look like over the next couple of years, we got some weird times maybe ahead of us here. When you look at years like 2008, 2009, 2015, where there was a flat line on the adjustment due to sort of the economic circumstances of the time. When we go through this process and, we have employees that are working hard, and, at the end of this, in a COLA year where there is zero adjustment, and I'm thinking of like the worst of times, right? There's obviously the general manager. It seems as though you have the sort of general manager's discretion in the overall process. Would we be locked into these automatic adjustments if there were multiple years of flatline COLA adjustments? No. Okay.
Nope, that's absolutely this. 2 quick comments to that one. This group absolutely could either temporarily or permanently revise these metrics at any point. There's been situations where, like you said, if it's an extreme year or a particular event, there have been boards that have implemented, a one-time increase or some other just merit-based increase. So there are other mechanisms should that situation come up that's outside of this framework. So it wouldn't necessarily be confined to this individual policy, but if the commission feels like there's some other overarching adjustment that should be made, that's certainly within the realm of reason to look at that, and depending on the circumstances.
Great. And would you envision sort of, and I believe, again, this is my first time going through this, so in a year where there's 7-8% COLA adjustments being made, where we do the 2 to 3, do you envision the board coming up to do an adjustment over and above to get, and then would the goal be to get everyone to that COLA adjustment, including their regular adjustment, or is that regular adjustment intended to be over and above a standard COLA adjustment that we might consider for the mass of the employees?
Sure, and I think this is what you're asking. So at least my thought, so absolutely subject to input, is that this is that consistent, hopefully applies just most normal years, that incorporates the COLA that fluctuates as you're just mentioning, a merit that's known, but then there's that I think the alluding to that continuous review of how we're doing with respect to the general market. And that's where I think it's our, just our competitive responsibility, perhaps is the phrase I'm looking for, to say, hey, how is the market treating the individuals that hold these positions? I'm not sure how with respect to the other four, if you just look at it this way, the other 41 MLPs in Massachusetts, who knows what's going on there? And so just making sure we keep an eye on the competition, if you will. And so that's where I think the structural adjustments on an as-needed basis come in as that normalizing mechanism, because it's difficult, I guess, in my view, also to keep it as concrete as this policy, because you might have folks that are in a performance improvement process that that have other considerations to take into account, or we might have those outstanding performers that are on in a different category to look at, that are being actively recruited by others. So those are the things that I think there's that small subsection in there to allow for those adjustments as needed, but otherwise this is that two consistent year over year components of a salary increase being a COLA and merit based on your performance.
And
Great.
just one thing I can add in from an employee perspective, to me, what a COLA all stands about is it makes sure that next year I'm not making less money than I was this year because of inflation.
Right.
So it just keeps that level. One of my past companies, they had one of the most robust review processes that you can imagine. And there's no great review process out there. There's no one winner. But at one point we were targeted because it was 2000, I think 10, and inflation just started coming back, but I got a 4% raise, and my manager was like, "That's great for this market." And I go, "Yeah, but it's really only," and at that point, I think it was maybe 2% or something. I go, "I really only got 2% merit increase." I go, "The rest of it was just bringing my salary level to what it was the year before." And all of a sudden she was like, "You're correct." So it's just one of those things where the COLA is just meant to make sure people aren't making less. And then the other component is to say, here's your reward for working hard. And everybody understands that you're going to have roles that are more finite and harder to get in those, hey, I did the most creative thing in my role, so I'm going to get a huge bump. So you have to kind of, play that out for everybody.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's great. Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sorry to blow up your agenda here. Thank you very much. And Mr. Manager, this is a great initiative, and good luck, Tracy.
Yeah.
Well, all the board members have had an opportunity to ask some questions. With that said, one last call to any of the board members, if you have any final questions before I ask for a motion to approve the performance evaluation policy. I'll do a quick roll call of just the folks to make sure that nobody has any other questions. Tony?
No, I don't, but what a great conversation. Thank you.
Okay, Maria?
No questions. Thank you.
Okay, Mike?
No further questions, thanks.
Okay, and Matt?
No questions.
Okay, and the only other comment that I have is just, I'm also of the understanding that we'll be very limited on the number of 3s versus 2s versus 1s, and that's why the final review process of HR and you, rather than having one person, one manager give away the treasury, so it'll be kind of a eyes on, right? Okay. With that said, do I have a motion to accept to approve the annual performance evaluation policy?
So moved.
Okay, Tony?
This is
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, Mike, second. Roll call vote to approve the Selco annual performance evaluation policy. Tony?
Yes.
Marie?
Yes.
Maria? Okay. Mike?
Yes.
And Matt?
Yes.
And Bob Holland? Yes. With that, the new Selco annual performance evaluation policy is put in place, and Tracy, you need to get offline and start working. No.
Yeah.
Okay. With that said, but before you do that, we need to make sure you're going to work on that next subject as well. The next item on the agenda is to review and vote on the annual Selco cost of living wage adjustment. Chris, Mr. Roy, who's going to be talking about that?
I could take that too. I'm on a roll.
Okay.
Okay, so as was mentioned a short time ago, I think it's all over the news on the COLA adjustment. So just to reiterate a couple of the high level thoughts behind this is to align the COLA increases with the utility fiscal / calendar year. So this is the time to do that. And it wouldn't be effective until that first payroll period. I just want to see if it was in the cover memo. Yeah, first Thursday of 2022. That's according to our payroll experts. That's the optimum time to make an adjustment. So that would be Thursday of 2022. And so the theory behind this year's increase, we provided the historical information I found fascinating. I forgot some of those, but is to leverage the COLA increase that happened this past July 1 and incorporate that with the 5.9% that we've seen with Social Security this year. And so that's that simple math of the 3.9% to cover that remaining gap between the 2% and the 5.9.
Okay, and the 3.9 that you're proposing would go into effect, as you said, in January, but that would be for the whole calendar year 2022. There will be no adjustment in June, July timeframe because we'll be on the calendar pay raise slant, COLA slant, whatever, from henceforth. Correct?
That's correct. Yes. And so I was just going to say that was our thought is to keep it simple and consistent with the data we have. I know Tracy does keep a record of the different numbers out there and different ways to calculate that. So we're certainly happy to cater to any feedback or other thoughts, but this was a Social Security based and trying to keep it straightforward and realign ourselves with the calendar year.
Okay, I'm going to take a round with the board members and see if they got any questions on this. Okay, Tony?
No question.
Okay, Maria?
I have a question and I might have missed it, but when are we so the evaluations will take place when? December? Or like when will they be presented?
So we have the form distributed to, this is a slightly off year, but moving forward, everyone should have the forms, end of October, and they work through the forms through November, and then we'll have the evaluations along with the associated merit increase in December. And that
Okay,
way,
so I'm sorry to interrupt, but so the reason why I'm asking this is when are we going to determine what the cost of living increase is going to be? So that will what month are we going to look at? Okay, the cost of living increase over the past year has been like, is that because you're not going to have, right? You're not going to have it for the calendar year 2022 until the fall, what it was. So you like what's the month and time that we're looking at? So we're going to go November to November. That's going to be the increase that we're looking at.
yes, that was my thought, was each November. Certainly could be December, but each November we'd incorporate that discussion.
Okay, thank you.
So Mike, any questions?
Yeah, just adding to that. So the timeline is this November, you're starting evaluations on the first payroll of January. We're bumping up the extra COLA, when do the performance evaluations get approved and go into effect? For instance, I assume we usually approve compensation. That would be at, say, a December 17th meeting. Are you set up to actually approve that, or do you then give a say it gets approved in January or February, it's retroactively given? I'm trying to get a sense of, and I'm assuming the evaluation process is going on this year to be in effect that 0, 1, 2, 3% for 2022.
So, okay, so let me see if I understood that correctly. So no one has received a merit increase for 2021. So the idea is to have the COLA in place in a November vote, such as this meeting. And then we'd implement the merit policy system, and how, according to those ratings, that's when that increase would also be combined and jointly implemented on the first Thursday of January. And so this policy, what we would do is also consistent, maybe I'll add this note, that would be consistent with the budget process. So we'd incorporate, by December, we would hopefully have a good sense for how the distribution of ratings would go, and we'd incorporate that payroll allotment in the budget request. So that way we have all of those figures, and then when we go asking for budget approval, the evaluations and their impact on payroll are incorporated in with the other categories in that budget proposal.
Okay. So the COLA, the second step COLA increase and the merit increase would be in effect the first payroll of January. So just stepping back, traditionally, we've not just approved the budget for increases, but the actual compensation. Not that we tinker a whole lot with it, but we usually approve it. I assume that would be third week of December. That seems to be a very fast timeline for you to achieve this. But I don't know. It's a logistics or a mechanics type thing. But
yes, sir. So that payroll adjustment is replaced by the policy. So the policy would be incorporated into
that approval process, or okay. So in other words, we no need for commission approval because we've approved the policy and the process for it.
Exactly.
All right. So we would just get notice or review the determination as opposed to the review approving the compensation.
Correct. It would be within that category of payroll, which we could highlight as just I was thinking as part of it.
All right. That's all my questions.
Okay, Matt, any questions?
No questions. Just a general observation. Obviously, inflation is the sort of news story of the day right now, right? And it looks like next year is not going to be much better. Supply chain, a lot of signals saying it's going to be bad. Just thinking of, I know you're going to be watching this, but thinking back to other sort of hyperinflationary moments in time, the last 20 years, we've been pretty, relatively flat compared to history. But, look at the early 80s and then the 70s, and there were some really volatile times, and the effects that will have on the budgetary impacts associated with a double-digit COLA increase, and even multiple years of that could really sort of rattle the cage of the budget a little bit. So hopefully we don't get there. None of us have a crystal ball, but we shall see, because the trends are certainly concerning of what's going on right now. So just something for us all to be cognizant of.
Okay, thank you, Matt. So the motion, looking for a motion to approve a 3.9% cost of living increase effective the first Thursday of 2022. Do I have a motion?
Yes. I move we
Tony,
do.
will you hit?
A
Okay,
second.
do we have a second?
A second.
Mike, okay. Roll call vote to approve the cost of living increase. Tony,
Yes.
Maria,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Matt,
Yes.
okay, and Bob, yes. Great, thank you very much. The next couple of things are pretty much in your bailiwick, Mr. Roy. You can, the seventh is review of Selco customer support enhancements cable. Floor is yours.
Or if I think on this one, if I may, pass the baton to our esteemed cable gurus. So I'll hand that to Joel.
All right,
Okay, hello, can you guys hear me?
sure can.
Sir.
All right. Well, thank you very much. So the internet is no longer a luxury. That is something we have learned out of the COVID-19 pandemic. It has become a necessity for all households. A lot of our subscribers are working from home, doing remote studies. Aside from a lot of the entertainment is coming through the internet these days. So at Selco, we have adapted to the needs of our subscribers throughout the years by providing faster internet speeds, always working on having a higher and better reliability on the system by upgrading servers, equipment, QAMs, and that a lot of that is technical, but we're also trying to work on the restructure of the personnel duties by extending with the hope of extending better support for our subscribers. So one of the things that we are currently working on is that we are working on having a 24/7, 365 days a week help desk. Currently, the help desk is our help desk is open from 8 to 10 p.m. We're working with a company called NRTC. They are also our email providers that we have for the subscriber, the townisp.com email. So we're working with them, and we're hoping they do help the support. They do support for other cable municipalities, like, for example, Braintree here in Massachusetts. And we're hoping to get them on board to assist our subscribers when the help desk is closed, which is basically after 10 p.m. all the way to 8 a.m. and during holidays like Christmas, Thanksgiving, where we're usually closed. So the other thing we're changing is our head and staff. They have an on-call standby. We're basically we have a rotation where we're basically asking the head and engineers to be available in case of an emergency. And when I say emergency, it's mostly outages. So what we're hoping to do now is we're breaking, we are defining what is kind of evening versus overnight. And by having those two time frames, we are creating a different level of emergencies where, in the evening time, a lot of the commercial subscribers sometimes ask for help, and the help desk is not equipped to assist them. So this is where the head-end engineers will come in and will assist, those escalations that may come from the help desk. And also we're trying to be more proactive on keeping our equipment running, outages, and anything that may come in to be more proactive. And that is, we're defining it from the evening time will be basically from 5 to 10 p.m. And evening time will be 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. And hopefully by having the 24/7 help desk, the help desk will be actively engaging the head-end engineers in case there are issues or if they see some kind of anomalies out there. Something new that we're adding to the rotation is we're adding a team of a supervisory team. that is basically the ones running the command center in the case of a storm, in case of outages. So basically, this person is going to be the different leads of the cable department or the cable teams, supervisors, managers within the cable team, and they'll be able to assist the heading engineers in case of an emergency, if they need to bring more resources like more field technicians or more help to staff, they'll be the ones coordinating a lot of that, and also engaging contractors. I mentioned in the past when we had the few internet outages, contacting vendors like Cisco or Clear Cable, or Phoenix Communication on the fiber side of restoration. On the field technician side, we are adding a little bit more support during holidays and weekends. Basically, when customers are calling with a TED modem, we were asking them to wait until the next available business day. What we're going to try to do now is be proactive, roll a truck out and get those modems replaced, or if there is, bad wiring or a broken fiber, because we're going fiber to the home now. So those will be replaced as needed. So again, the goal is to continue providing great services and have our customers have the best experience when using our services. Questions?
Okay, thank you, Joel. Tony, any questions?
No, I do not. Thank you.
Okay, Mike?
Nothing from me, thanks.
Maria?
I do have a question. Do we have any idea what the impact to our payroll is going to be? And what the costs associated with adding all this additional time to workers? And the additional service for NRTC?
Yes, we currently have on the NRTC side, I can speak on the NRTC side, we currently have an answering service today, but they do not do technical troubleshooting. So we're basically replacing that answering service for a help desk that can actually do troubleshooting. At the beginning, we do not think, because customers do not know yet that there is support after 10 p.m. We don't think at the beginning there's going to be a large increase on cost because they're going to be charging us per minute. But I believe throughout time, as customers, figure out or learn that we have services available beyond the usual time, that's what we see. We think there's going to be an increase, but at the moment, it's going to be just a replacement of vendors one by another.
So the charge is per minute for every minute that they have to be online with somebody?
Yes.
Okay. But then I guess Chris and Jim, have you guys looked at what the additional payroll costs are going to be for having employees working during holidays?
Well, Joel, correct me if I'm wrong, but we have employees here on holidays already. So we did look at the analysis, and for the most part, it's the idea is to keep it level funded. So we think that because again, holidays, and please, Joel, correct any misstatements I make, but holidays are overtime. There's additional payroll costs already incorporated in there, where this is a minute by minute service that essentially has shifts. So the shifts don't incur those additional payroll costs. So it's not like I could see at the outset, it says, we're adding a whole nother segment of hours to the coverage period, but it's essentially level funded because of the per minute cost. And essentially that's also, I think, an incentive for us to make sure our system is reliable, because it keeps those calls down, which is also concurrent with our fiber investments. That should hopefully, be a more reliable system than the coax-based internet, which we do see that. So there's that component. And the other piece is, I think, the coverage component for off hours and call-ins and things like that, that the past activity versus forecasted activity should should largely come out even. So it's not like this has made any material impact to the budget.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, I
Okay.
actually did have a question on this, and related to how important it is, how people comment in town of the local nature of our service providers, and they even know everybody's first names, and apparently these guys do a terrific job in being responsive. How do we not lose that culture, but also how do we, where are we calling at night, and how do we measure quality control or customer satisfaction in a more real-time fashion to make sure that we're not suddenly decreasing our customer satisfaction?
Sure. With NRTC, I mean, even today with Crocker, we're getting a daily log of calls that go in, and they, with the answering service, they are just letting us know what the problem or issue is. With NRTC, which is the other company that we're talking to, they are providing a, they have the stats that they will be providing, like for how long is the average call volume. If they're going to be providing stats like if they were able to fix the issues right away, or if they had to escalate. And I believe that, of course, it's going to take some tweaking, but yes, we do not want to lose that personal touch with the subscriber. And that's kind of, it is in our radar that we got to keep an eye on that. They're going to be calling, I believe they have stations in Rochester, New York. And they have, I believe, is somewhere in the Pacific time. That's where the other help desk is. But they're all both in the United States.
I think one thing that'd be helpful would be some kind of follow-up survey to customers that call in to measure, pretty quickly, were they satisfied with the service? I don't know if that is built in or it can be built in, but that would be my only concern is, a national team, and I'm sure they have figured out how to do this efficiently. But the question is, are our local customers satisfied with? It's nice to have a service, right? Someone to go to. But on the other hand, if it becomes a negative experience, it affects our reputation.
Could I just add a quick comment to that? So
Go ahead, Chris.
I think it is my hope actually that I guess this sounds like an obvious statement. Customer satisfaction would go up. So the way, this is just my initial assessment of the situation. Our help desk hours and our employees wouldn't be changing. And so right now, if you're not within our help desk window, you don't get service. You call in, Crocker says we can't help you. We'll punt it till the next business hour. So this is intended to come in and say, actually, no, it's not local. Our folks are home sleeping likely at these hours, but it's now we have a team that might be in a different time zone where it is more feasible, and we can help you. We can troubleshoot your internet, your phone. I think phone might not be included, but internet and TV. And so now it's gone from Crocker, which just answers the phone and says, thanks for calling. And it goes to NRTC that says, you know what, we'll actually solve the problem. And then we get our local team back during regular business hours as we have been for a long time.
No, I obviously I get that it's meant to be an improvement, and the fact that the service is there is better than no service. But sometimes a negative call is worse than no call. So that's what I guess I'm trying to point out is how do we measure the quality control in ways that are other than the provider that's providing the service. So in an objective way that we can measure our own customer satisfaction. For instance, I went to urgent care 2 weeks ago. Within 2 hours, I got a FedEx, a text saying 1 to 10, how happy were you, right? And so that was a very real time, process for me to say, oh yeah, that was a good experience or a negative experience. And then there was a follow-up text, why? So it was two quick things, right? I'm not saying everyone needs a Survey Monkey type thing, but I just wanted, particularly early in, you wanted to, make sure that, we're not just relying on on them to tell us how good a job they're doing, but to hear it from our customers somehow.
If I can pass it to Aaron. Aaron?
Yeah, hi everyone. If I may jump in here, as far as the survey, that's a fantastic idea. We can do that. What I can tell you about NRTC is because they're a large call center and their main office is out of Raleigh. They have, from what we've seen of them, they have really good metrics and improvement plans for employees, and how they handle a call-to-call basis that they share and they make all available to you, which is pretty fantastic. You can actually see all of that data. So in addition, to having some surveys that we can potentially roll out, for anyone who's engaged after hours call, the big thing is we trust them because of their metrics that they've shown us and how they handle it. But the other big thing is all of our, and Chris kind of said this already, but the prime time hours, it'll still be all Selco local staff. Everyone will get that same service that they've come to expect from Selco. This will obviously add the off-hour support, but the big thing to me and the most important thing is the supplemental capability for outage scenarios, right? So when do we get the worst feedback from our customers is when they are trying to call in and our phone queue is flooded and you can't even leave a message if you want, right? This company, NRTC, they have the capability for us to reach them at any time and say we need supplemental support, and it's built in to this plan that we've gone with them, so they'll offer us that additional support. And we built in a buffer as far as minutes go and what we're expecting to pay in the event that there were an outage. Like, it wouldn't be a crazy shock as far as costs or anything like that. That's like something that's really, really important to me, and I think it'll help alleviate some of those customer complaints we get. I mean, we all can think back to, maybe no one wants to think back, but the 4th of July, right? Like this scenario with NRTC would go a long way in helping us alleviate some of those problems.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, Mike, you all set?
Yes.
Okay, and Matt?
Yeah, no, I just one last comment. As a lifelong Selco customer, one of the things that makes it so, I guess, special is sort of the local element of it. Knowing that when I pick up the help desk, I'm talking to someone nearby is something that I think is an incredible, valuable thing in today's day and age, because seems like every help desk in the world is somewhere overseas, and I think even the option of the off hours, keeping that domestic is actually a really important thing, and I'm pretty excited about that. So.
Okay, thank you. I have no other comments on it because I want to get to the next topic, which is review of Selco television service technology upgrades. Chris, who's going to handle that? Is that Jackie or Joel?
My vote would be to keep our cable gurus going.
All right, Joel.
All right. So, so I wanted to share a little bit of our history. In the mid 1990s, we went with a digital video platform manufactured by Scientific Atlanta, which back then it was the cutting edge in digital video infrastructure. We were one of the first in the Northeast to have a digital video system. Digital video allowed to cable providers to have services like video on demand, high definition, and based on our success back then, Greater Media, which is now Charter or Spectrum, follow our footsteps and also went with Scientific Atlanta and deployed digital services like a year or two after we did. However, throughout the years, we have continued doing improvements to our system on the video side. We deployed the Rovi Guide in 2008. In 2011, we went all digital, which allow us to enhance our HD lineup and also increase our internet speeds because we gain more spectrum bandwidth. In 2017, we launched TiVo, which allow us the capability of having 4K streaming. with TiVo, customers were able, using our set-top boxes, to launch apps like YouTube, Netflix, and keeping it with the services that the customers like that at the moment. However, a lot of that is running on that same Scientific Atlanta platform that was deployed in the 1990s. So the Selco video system is in need of a major overhaul. And as you guys have all experienced, I'm sure, a lot of the video streaming is going over the top, which is using applications like YouTube, Netflix, Hulu. So it is time for Selco to join the over-the-top platform and have an application that can be used by our subscribers using smart TVs, mobile phones, or tablets. And this is where Selco has been working throughout the past few years, looking at the different options available. However, we are happy to announce that we are going with Minerva. Minerva is the leading in IPTV delivery, which is video over the internet based networks. It is an app similar. It is an app similar to like the ones by Hulu, YouTube, Netflix, and it will hopefully have it will be a Selco based app, which I'm sure our marketing team will later on customize to display our logos. There are new features that come with the Minerva app, or this kind of technology. Some of them are like catch-up TV, which is basically the system is going to be recording up to, I believe, is 7 days worth of programming. So, for example, customers, without having to push the record button, they'll be able to watch shows that happen. For example, today were Tuesday. They'll be able to watch the football game that happened on Sunday without having to record it. Another good application, another good feature is smart highlights. Again, going back to football, instead of watching the full 4-hour game and fast forwarding through commercials or plays that we were not interested, we can set a time of what we want to watch. So if we want to watch only 10 minutes worth of highlights, the subscriber or the user will be able to set within the remote or the application that they only want to watch 10 minutes worth of highlight, and perhaps it will just show touchdown, interception, turnovers, and plays like that, the important plays that the subscriber may be interested. There's also comes with personal profiles. So if I have if within the household someone has a kid, they set a profile for a kid, and the profile will come with the appropriate PG-rated content. Another great feature, and this is something that we are very excited and we like, is that customers will be able to use their preferred streaming equipment. So for the app will be able to run on, like I said, smart TVs, Roku's, Amazon Fire Stick, Chromecast, or iPhones, tablets. So the customer is no longer tied to just a set-top box, and they can take their shows almost anywhere with them. So that's another great feature. Of course, for those customers that do not have any kind of smart devices, Selco, will work with them. We'll set them up with some kind of a set-top box or streaming device like a Fire Stick or Roku. We haven't decided yet which one we're going to be deploying, but we will definitely assist them with that. The system will work with our existing Wi-Fi services and internet services over fiber. So we feel that having a technology like this will allow Selco to continue in that wave of being a pioneer in the cable video space. Questions?
We'll go down the roll. Tony, any questions?
Yeah, in the long term, are you planning on removing all the cable boxes and just do over-the-top type type stuff?
Yes, that's
And what
correct.
about the old timers who don't have the internet? Are you gonna somehow handle that?
There are set-top boxes similar to like the size of a DTA, and they will come with a clicker,
Yeah.
just like the DTAs are. But we're talking, this is something that is more smart. It will come with, it's internet-based. So yes, we will have a clicker, and you will feel like it is the same service that they are getting or they're used to getting through the set-top boxes.
Okay.
Could I add a quick comment? And Joel, please correct me if I'm misstating, but I think an important factor, Tony, to your question about the long-term product is,
Right.
is that just as a maybe a refresher or reminder, without a product like this, there is no mechanism to deliver video off of fiber. And so as the coax system ages out and reaches end of life, without an option like this in a transition period, the fate of video would be decided along with the coax system, essentially just age out, and the ability to maintain two sets of infrastructure, a coax and a fiber system, is really virtually impossible in any reasonable mechanism. So this is our ability to at least hedge the ability to keep the video product going, at least in both short term or long term, depending on how that conversation plays out.
Okay. Maria?
So I just, so long term, is it going to be that everybody's going to have to have internet in order to have a TV product from Selco?
No, they don't
No.
need to be an internet subscriber.
Okay, so the video product will, well, how is that going to run then? Or is
Speak to that, Joel, if you want.
What?
I can speak to that, Joel, if you want. So what we'll do from a provisioning perspective out of billing, if a customer only has video service and they don't want to subscribe to our internet package, we'll provision the fiber device that connects to that fiber connection, which would be their normal internet device. We'll provision that to only operate with that local either cable box or with their apps. It'll be like a one-to-one relationship. So that'll be all provisioned through our billing system based on what packages they sign up for. So they won't have to subscribe to internet. That device itself will get internet, but it will be locked down to just the capabilities of the video service.
Okay, so they're basically on internet. They just don't have to have an internet service, but that's how the product is running.
Correct. They won't be
Okay.
able to use the internet like as you and I would, on a day-to-day basis. It would only provide internet to that one service of video, and that's it.
Okay, got it.
So
Thank you.
Even if they tried to plug something into our device to get around it, it wouldn't work. They wouldn't be able to renew any IPs or anything like that. So
Okay, so like if they're on their TV, so say they're on their TV, they have a smart TV and they have this product, the box. The box isn't going to give them they can't go into their smart TV and then get on the internet, right? It's just they can just use the cable box, well, whatever that box top
Mhm.
is, to
Exactly.
get TV stations, but nothing else.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, interesting. Thank you.
Okay, and Mike?
Yeah, I knew there must be a trick to trade to make that work. So thanks for that. The only other comment I have is we have, I think, a 10-year license with the town. And I don't know when that 10 years is up. Do you, Bob? I don't know when
I
that
do.
10 years. What date is that?
It's, I believe it's March of 2023. So we're coming up on it pretty quick, and we'll be having conversations
Right.
about that franchise renewal
Right.
next year.
So I think this is a good kind of springboard toward what changes. Yeah, maybe 10 years is going to be too long, but what changes will that license require, if any, relative to this or where we're headed? And when do we start really thinking thinking about that, because that date will come right upon us in 2023.
Well, Mike, as well, that's going to affect how much SMC gets, because cable, we only pay the town based on cable subscribers and not on any other medium. So there's going to be a question of how the internet directly or indirectly affects how much we pay the town to provide to SMC.
So Bob,
Because-
today we actually pay on all of the revenue, but traditionally cable franchise agreements with other operators are paid only on video. And that would be a discussion for sure that would come into play as we start evaluating how we want to approach our 2023 agreement.
Well, I don't know if it's too early, but we may be up for a discussion on what that license says now and kind of where we think it's headed. And I am concerned about a 10-year renewal, just given the technology change and the cord cutting, as to what expectations are between us and the town, and what this license should look like and should be to best support the town.
Okay.
Yeah, those are all excellent points, Mike. And those are all things that we're hopefully going to bring to you guys for discussion with recommendations on how to approach that. We also need to consult with legal counsel if we can, in fact, have a franchise agreement shorter than 10 years.
Right.
You know, and there are certain things that are in our agreement now that I believe Chris and I would recommend that we remove. I think that there are things that we would want to adjust overall to give us some flexibility in the face of all of this changing technology, right? So
Right.
I think that we don't want to be locked into something that ends up being unfavorable or impossible to provide, just with the rapid pace of change that we've been seeing, never mind what's coming our way. So
Right.
that would be definitely part of the conversation. And I agree, starting that planning process sooner rather than later makes a lot of sense to me. I would think probably early to mid 2022, we should start having some real conversations about what we'd like to bring to the town on that. If I recall, it was a pretty involved process last time around, the documents about this thick. And certainly we'll want to evaluate every component of it to make sure that we've got an agreement that works for everyone.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Matt, any questions?
Just what you sold me, Joel, on the football explanation. When is this available?
So we are in the process of signing the contract at the moment. We're hoping to have it early next year. That's what they were saying. Hopefully February, something like that.
Sign me up. Thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, so leads us to our last item on the agenda. Make sure I'm not skipping anything, and that's general manager's highlights. And I think you're going to discuss the outages between as well on both internet and most recently on electric over the weekend.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just need to go to my mobile device. I have to get mobile
Understand.
for a meeting, but I'll maintain on the meeting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Okay, Chris, the floor is yours.
Thank you, sir. So I think maybe we'll work, well, we can work backwards quickly since you mentioned it. So let me admit, here we go. Oh, someone got it. Okay, so with the latest internet outage, I figured we'll maybe close out our cable folks, so you could speak to that real quick on what happened with that last event. There were several nodes in there, and so I would ask that you could speak to that.
Sure. Yeah, on the internet outage, we have a piece of equipment that started failing around 4 p.m. Billy actually was the one on site that day. He was working the outage. It took a while to identify where the source of the outage was coming, because that's a device that has basically never failed in the past. It started with just a few hundred customers. As we started troubleshooting, we started seeing how more customers were going offline. while working with all our contractors, that's when we started troubleshooting, identifying the different pieces of equipment, and that's when we got to something called the timing server. So basically, in order for all these 15,000 cable modems to communicate, there is a device that it tells them when to communicate, and it's keeping timing or sequence on when they speak with the system. I mean, trying to explain it in as lame terms as possible. I don't get it sometimes myself. So this piece of equipment failed, and then it took a while. Once, I mean, we did have a spare server. We put it in, and it took a while for the consultants to reconfigure everything. Once we had it up and running, that's when basically we started seeing customers coming back online. Unfortunately, it took over 10 hours for that outage to be resolved. However, Billy is working proactively and trying to add a second server that will act as an active backup. So in case of one of these timing servers failed, the second timing server will take over, and customers will not even feel the impact. I don't know if Billy wants to add anything else.
Okay, and just as a quick reminder to the public, that was on Monday, 1 November, right? You said it started at 4:20, but it was on that Monday into Tuesday, correct? Okay.
Correct.
Okay, and a good recovery from that. Okay, well, thank you. Chris, back to you.
Sure. All right. So I think that's filled our cable quota for these folks. And then in terms of the outage that just happened, I mean, maybe if there's a willing party, we could give our electric side an opportunity to speak to that outage that impacted Southgate and that surrounding neighborhood just the other day.
I can speak on that. So on Saturday, November 13th, around 5 p.m., we had an operation on one of our feeders that goes along Route 9, South Street, Grafton Street. It's fed out of our Centex substation. Lightning hit the conductors on Route 9 between pole 144 and 145. So that's on Route 9 westbound, just before Price Chopper. The breaker opened and closed. The crew went out. They found the location of the outage. They reached out to engineering. Engineering advised them to open up the breaker for a quick hour up to 2 hours so that they could make the proper repairs. We notified our marketing department. They posted on Facebook, letting all the residents know of the affected areas, and then we proceeded to open up the breaker, and the line crews make the proper repairs. The repairs were done within the hour, and the power was restored around 7 p.m. And that's about it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So then I guess moving to, more traditional matters, I figured I'd go through the other summary items fairly quickly. We had, as everyone's probably seen in the news, just starting with some of these legislative bits, I did want to just highlight, I couldn't not put in the infrastructure bill. That's all over the news, so I added that in there. But I think there's enough news coverage on that. But the other ones that, if you ever are interested to go look at these different publications, I try and pull a variety of items that might be valuable in terms of, either short or longer term discussions related to, Selco specific matters. And so I threw in here, electric heat being knocked as too slow. That came from the State House News Service. Just to add some context, energy efficiency program, Those two were categorized together just as we start to talk budget items in really next meeting, to put some context behind some of the options we're using through our efficiency programming and our strategic electrification initiatives and rebates and things like that. So electrification is really key and a hot topic, along with the efficiency programs. And I really think it gives us an opportunity as public power and Selco to stay ahead of the curve with our ability to adapt our programming content to be the most effective when compared to some of the larger initiatives that we often get compared against, such as Mass Save. And then there's just some other context for some of the climate and power supply related policy making. Electricity sector will grow more than 1% annually amid electrification, again, tying in the themes of electrification, revenue and sales forecasts, and potential impacts to Selco and our infrastructure. And then just some other interesting data points, again, just to highlight some of those relationship matters. I think it's interesting, like the last bullet point, Eversource asking, for $33 million for their pipeline, and they're just having that battle and refusal to pay taxes to Springfield. It's, it just highlights, again, I think it's nice to know what's out there when compared to, Selco making our payments and talking about the franchise arrangements and pilot and things like that, that we're a reliable resource and community partner in that respect. Highlighted some personnel changes in the HR section. Again, in the interest of tying back to that prior agenda item, I think we've been very fortunate in our ability to, despite our size, not being an employer of thousands of people, our ability to provide opportunities for growth and different career changes within our organization. So this list you'll see, all of these are internal employees that have been, for the most part, long-standing Selco employees that have interviewed and done well and made changes within the organization to other roles. So I think that's a win-win all around. So congratulations to those folks. And then we covered the outage with the electric engineering and ops report. That's just happy to answer any questions on those specific projects, but those are just the activities you may have seen our crews working on over the last month. Most are fairly standard here, so I don't think I had called attention to anything in particular. Broadband technologies, we did hear from them quite a bit today, but the big one, the fiber to the home project, I just wanted to speak to that real quick. Again, we're at 98% complete. That's that final 2% that's been a struggle. There's two noteworthy points related to that. One of our major contractors, Triwire, is in the process of being acquired by a larger national entity, ITG. So there's been some growing pains with that acquisition and getting resources assigned to Shrewsbury in our project. So that's just a project hiccup we've been navigating, which is contributing to some of the slower pace for that remaining 2%.
That's just the phase one, though, right?
This
That's not
is
the
just
entire
phase
town.
one.
That's just phase one, right? Yeah.
That's correct. That's just phase one. And so that's just really and that's an associated staffing shortages are just drawing out that remaining 2%, but 98% complete on phase one. Phase two, we are in the process of trying to finalize the design and subsequent material procurements for that. So we're working to hopefully have those bids released in the next few weeks. But again, it's just with some of the support, we're using the same project management firm for phase one. And so we're balancing their time between phase one work and then the phase two work coming up. And so we're just in that little bit of a bottleneck of hours in the day in terms of trying to close out phase one and make sure we're, fully designed and procured for phase 2, but that is in the works and slated for bid in the next few weeks. And then fiber installs, the town radio project, and those are other noteworthy projects in here. Again, just kind of in the interest of time, kind of glossing over that. A couple of community outreach noteworthy topics. The EVIP, Mass EVIP grant. So that's I think a big win is getting that grant funding for level 2 charging station here at Town Hall to start our process of implementing electric vehicle chargers around Shrewsbury. So that was a big win. We've been engaged heavily in trying to make sure the Yuletide market is ready, as well as like the Common. You may have seen crews out there. It's been delicate work trying to make sure we have conduit in place without disrupting the root system of the trees, the gorgeous mature trees that are out there on the Common. So the crews have been working on that to provide a more, I'm going to say, robust solution for stringing the lights without having to hang the wires from tree to tree and have that susceptible to ice and snow and things like that. So they've been working on that. And then,
Chris, not to interrupt on that, but can you give the time and the date for the lighting of the trees and everything? Because the viewing public so they don't miss that. I think it's the 4th of December at 4:45, right? They're going to light the lights, and then the market goes from 5 to 8 that evening. Okay. Just want to. Okay.
I believe that is spot on, and I look to Jackie for the nod. All right, and the thumbs up. So that's a big one. We're geared up for that, and I know we'll have a complement of Selco folks there to support that. And again, the annual Share the Warmth campaign is always noteworthy. We tried to hit those timeline components there, the envelopes being included with all bills in basically mid-November this month, and again running those TV ads to try and boost participation. And again, that also ties with the Yuletide market and lighting of the Common as another mechanism for fundraising effort.
Now, Chris, maybe
sure.
Jackie can help us in this. We collect money for Share the Warmth to help folks who can't pay, for their heat and whatnot. But we don't actually accept the applications, correct? Do people apply like through the Senior Center or through Shrewsbury Youth and Family Services? How does that work, Jackie?
Yeah, so we partner with local social service agencies to have them accept the application and determine need. So we do that primarily through the Senior Center and through the Shrewsbury Youth and Family Services, also St. Anne's Human Services. I believe the Congregational Church and St. Mary's have also passed applications to us in the past. They're using pretty consistent metrics. If you qualify for a variety of other programs, you meet the same standards that would qualify you for Share the Warmth. So we encourage anybody who is in need to reach out to any of these organizations. They have the applications right now. Typically, this is a big time of year that we run our fundraiser. Funds are distributed in March to qualifying customers. So get those applications in and make sure you're doing the legwork now if you're in need. We want to make sure that anybody who qualifies gets those apps in so that they can receive their funding in March.
Thank you.
Excellent. And so, so that's a great initiative. And then similar to just in the theme of this whole section, different mechanisms to support the community and hit some of the Selco energy related targets. We have the new battery snowblower rebates, and that's we've had good success with that. So now we're entering the winter season, and snow blowers are the new equipment of interest. So that's certainly available, and we have the website link for that. And the other one that was interesting that we were talking about is Channel 26 bulletin board. As folks I feel are well aware, we've had our challenges with maintaining channel 26 and similar in theme with some of that cable TV infrastructure. The equipment running channel 26 is old and difficult to maintain. So one of the things we're doing is exploring the possibility of handing that channel 26 management off to SMC, who's responsible for managing all of those channels anyway. So there might be a synergy there for them to make sure that that channel is also reliably up and running along with all the others. So I think we're not sure, where that will go, but I think it's something that is at least worth a discussion and consideration. And there's a component of the ad revenue that could be beneficial to SMC. Again, in that category of longer term conversations, I think that's an advantage to having a possibility of a longer term TV technology out there, because that'd be a major impact to SMC without that link to subscribers, TV subscribers with that service. So I think so this will help, with potential ad revenue resource on there, and then dovetail in with future conversations with our TV service and the technology with that. Yeah. And then again, IT, just some more insight on what our IT outfit is working on with respect to Selco as well as the town. Again, another arm of Selco that has a different set of customers or clients, if you will, but we're working hard to introduce more reporting and metrics with respect to our IT services. So that's that project list, as well as the ticketing status pie charts to help monitor and track how we're doing with respect to ticket completions, as well as the categories where those tickets are being filed, to make sure it's there aren't negative trends, or we're not having large upticks in threats and cybersecurity issues. And then the internet customer report.
Okay.
And then I almost forgot one last important thing, if I may. We added in at the last minute, it's not in your printed packets, but last meeting, there was the question about broadband services we provide to other communities. And so that one, that if you look at the drive file, it's just a very quick summary of those types of services. That essentially it's bulk bandwidth support. We don't provide any necessarily any retail services. We're not rolling construction crews to other communities at this point, but we do, given the maturity of Selco's cable business, we are providing bulk services to several other MLPs, and that those descriptions can be found in that summary page on the drive file.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks to everyone for their support and reports today. I think a lot of good things have come out of this one, especially on the personnel side of the house, and we're looking to the future strategically, looking at potentially our licensing agreements with the town, and all the other things that are going on. So a lot of balls in the air, doing great. I'll make one quick round of the folks, the board, to see if anybody has any questions. Tony, you have any additional questions or comments?
Just one other comment, a shout out to Jackie Pratt and the article there in Public Power. That was very nice.
Yep. Okay. Great. Yeah, there's a very positive thing about what Shrewsbury's doing in general, and
right.
Really great as far as how important community public power is as far as municipal power, how it is valuable to community. So well done. Okay, Maria.
No comments.
Okay, Mike.
Nothing further, thanks.
Okay, and Matt, if you're on your mobile.
All set, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I have no other comments. So our next meeting will be on Tuesday, the 14th of December at 7:30 a.m. It also will be on Zoom based on current policies and whatnot. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, roll call to complete the meeting at 9:31 a.m. Tony?
Yes.
Maria?
Yes.
Yep. Mike?
Yes.
Bob? Matt, sorry.
Yes.
Okay, and Bob, meeting is adjourned at 9:31. Thank you very much. Thanks all.